This is a Jewish Iranian woman voting in the recent elections, basically. No big story about that in the media because apparently Iran is, anti-Semitic and anti-Jewish. Actually, biggest Jewish community outside Israel in the Middle East, in Iran. Been there many, many centuries. Yeah, been there many centuries and resisted bribes to emigrate to Israel. Unlike in a lot of the Arab states, because actually, with the creation of Israel, the frontline Arab states, there was indeed a big disruption of Jewish communities. For example, in Aleppo, in Syria, because they were forced to choose, it was said, between being a Zionist and being Jewish, basically. So a lot of the Jewish community, a large part of the Jewish community in Syria, for example, left at that time. But in Iran they stayed. And they have a special status there. In fact, almost all the minorities have a special status in Iran, are protected. There are reserved seats in parliament for the Armenians, Christian Armenians, mostly Christian Armenians, Jews, Zoroastrians, and mostly Christian Syrians. Indeed, if you go to Isfahan in Iran, there's a huge Armenian community there. There's a big cathedral there. There's a museum of Armenian history and the genocide under the Ottomans and so on there too. The only small minority group that's not accepted in Iran are the Baha'is. Now the reason for that is that the Baha'is, they proselytise, they try to convert Muslims, which doesn't go down very well in that Islamic culture. It's not considered appropriate. And they've got their headquarters in Israel. So they've been seen as fifth columnists basically for a long time. But basically the protection of minorities is something you won't see in the Western media. Now, coming on to the consequences of all this systematic bias, this systematic prejudice, is we're in the middle now of this terrible economic war which is covering pretty much all of the independent countries of the West Asian region.